everyone. Welcome to Textiles and Tea. I'm Kathy Group. I'm the Advertising and Marketing Manager, and I am the host today for Textiles and Tea with the Handweavers Guild of America. Today's episode is sponsored by Meridian Millhouse. They specialize in high quality, beautiful, undyed yarns. Please go to their website at meridianmillhouse.com and check out their full line of beautiful yarns. We will do questions today. It's usually the last 15 minutes of the hour. And if you would, please use the Q&A button and not the chat button. Today, I'm excited to welcome Jacqueline James. Now, Jacqueline was born in Scotland, but she grew up in the US and currently lives in York, UK. She attended Harrogate College of Art with a focus in weaving. And she uses mostly natural, sustainable, soft, and durable materials like wool and cotton and linen. But recently, she's been experimenting more with some more exotic fibers like silk and ramie and banana fiber. She uses Peter Collingwood's shaft switching technique to produce her beautiful geometric designs. And to achieve her signature color combinations and gradations, she hand dyes her yarns. Jacqueline has been awarded a variety of public commissions, including for Westminster Abbey, York Minster, and the British Library. She's exhibited extensively and she's won a variety of awards and grants. We are so excited to have you all the way from England with us today. Hello, Jacqueline.
Hello, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for the lovely introduction.
Absolutely. Now, our first question, and for you, is so appropriate since you're in England. What's your favorite tea?
Yorkshire tea.
Now, how's that related to York, where you live?
Well, I mean, I live in the county of Yorkshire, in North Yorkshire. It's the biggest county in England, and it's particular. It was brewed for our hard mineral water. We have
really?
Yeah, so it's like it's really good, and a lot of people over here drink it with a bit of milk in it as well. So it's quite strong. It's good. I love it.
Well, that's good to know for anybody who's in an area that has harsh water. There we go. See, folks, you learn more here than just fiber. It's amazing.
That's right.
First question I have for you is how or why did you start weaving?
Well, I've always been interested in arts and crafts and creative pursuits and activities. And I was really fortunate where I grew up in Washington State. My family and schools nurtured my artistic curiosities. And I also used to live near the university in Bellingham. And I used to walk through the art department sometimes when I was walking through the campus or something, and I would stop and see the large floor looms, and I'd be quite inquisitive, but as a sort of a 10-year-old girl. And then when I went to high school at Seaholm High School, I did my first weaving on a frame loom. I did tapestry weaving. And I did lots of other arts and crafts at high school as well. I had a really fantastic foundation. And so that sort of sparked my interest. And I also did an evening class in Bellingham about spinning wool and dyeing with natural dyes, with like onion skins and that sort of thing. And that really, really intrigued me. And then I went on to study it when I moved to York in 1982 after traveling around a bit, and then I studied textiles at Harrogate, and I specialized in rug weaving. Mm-hmm. So
you learned the beginning of weaving in the US, and then you progressed when you went over there.
Okay. Basically, but it was really, you can't just weave on a basic frame loom, something quite complicated, so.
Well, I mentioned earlier that you've done commissions, and I know a lot of people are curious how do you generate commissions? How did you get those?
So my first major commissions were through sort of word of mouth, I think, and recommendations. And sort of once you start getting into a certain circuit, you get known to do that sort of work. So that's how I got the ecclesiastical commissions, like Westminster Abbey and York Minster and Wakefield Cathedral and things like that. Just because it was kind of known that I was one of the people that wasn't an embroiderer, perhaps, that made altar frontals. And now I'm more interested in trying to proactively market my work. So for the past 6 years, I've been working closely with the Design Trust, and I've been learning from Patricia Vandenacker mainly to how to approach my target audience and work with the people who will commission my work. Instead of trying to appeal to everybody, I target more trying to liaise with interior designers and architects and collectors who really are interested in my work. And then I will also show at trade shows that will attract those sort of people as well to commission me.
Oh, okay. Well, you've won several awards, like we mentioned earlier, and one was even presented by Princess Margaret. Yep. So what do you think for you is your greatest confirmation or affirmation of your work?
Well, I mean, I've had a really interesting, career with, lots of successes and opportunities and challenges as well. But I think probably my proudest commission will be the altar frontals that I made. I've made 2 altar frontals for Westminster Abbey, so that's probably my highest accolade so far.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's an honor to have my work there.
So you used the shaft switching that Peter Collingwood designed. And you actually have one of his hand-built looms, right, in your home?
At the moment, I'm looking after one of his hand-built loom that he made, probably in the 60s. And I was exhibiting it at a show in 2019. And then I promised I would then find it a permanent public home. So I'm still in conversation with various like universities and the V&A and things like that to see if who would like to house it so that it can be seen by lots of people, because it's really beautiful. It's functional as well. It's got 8 shafts and it's perfectly made, and and he made all his samples for his book, The Techniques of Rug Weaving. So
well, for all of us who are fans of Peter Collingwood, thank you for taking good care of that loom and finding it a home. Well, you also studied with his son, Jason Collingwood. So how did the Collingwoods, either one, impact or influence your work?
Well, both of them, obviously. I mean, Peter Collingwood, he shared his instructions for the shaft switching device. So he gave me the plans that he had used, and I adapted them to make one for my loom. So I used the technique that he invented that allows me to create surface pattern on a double woven cloth. And I worked with Jason just for 1 week at Convergence, actually, in Portland, Oregon. And he taught me just some really finesse things about rug weaving, that it's always good to work with other rug weaving people. And I have also worked with people like Martha Stanley, and I've been to so many conferences over the last 30 years that I can't remember all the people that I've worked with, but I think Jason and Peter have had a great influence on my work, and especially I always constantly still refer to the techniques of rug weaving.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, let's look at some of your work. This rug, the Calçada Portuguese, is a good example of the use of your color and pattern. So my question is to you, which comes first? Do you choose your colors first, or do you choose your pattern first?
Well, it really depends on how much yarn I've got for a project. So if I'm making a commission, then I might have to think about the color first. But if I'm making something for exhibition, I will get all my yarn out and sort of see how much I've got of everything, and then I'll create something based on that. So this one was made with the pattern first and the color after. And it's inspired by the pavements in Portugal that I was admiring so much. And it's using lots of different, there's probably 30 or 40 different colors of wool, all different combinations. And this is a shaft switch rug. Yeah. Mhm.
Well, you, when you're designing, I was looking at that, thinking about this. When you're designing, do you draw it out by hand? Do you use a computer combination?
Both. I use both. So sometimes, I mean, I always, even if I use the computer to design something, I
Mhm.
always have to print it out and color it with my crayons that I've got, in order to get, I'm really want to get the colors that I want, and also to blend and everything that I can't achieve on digitally yet. So I use a program called Stitch Painter, which is it's by Cochineal Designs, and I've been using that for some time. So that I will use as a basic tool to perhaps quickly try a lot of things, kind of sketches, if you like, and then I will go and print something out. And I also have special graph paper that's kind of a cream color with gray grid on it, and that's my favorite kind of paper. And then I use my crayons and I'll design with that too. And that I also need to know the kind of I use that as a measuring scale as well on my graph paper to design
Huh.
it. Mhm.
Now, I've always wanted to ask about this because you have worked and studied in the US as well as the UK.
Mhm.
How are the fiber arts treated differently in each country?
Well, this is such an interesting question, because I had no idea that there was such a difference in the way that people perceived the textile fiber arts in the UK and the USA. While I was in the USA growing up, I was in the art department, and as far as I was concerned, I was doing textile art, or whatever I was doing, art, ceramic art, painting art. And so when I went to college, I still was in an art college, so I still thought it was art, but I was soon told that I was doing a craft. And so I began to understand that it was viewed slightly differently. But to me, my sentiment is that I think you have to be both a craftsman and an artist to be an artist and a craftsman. I think they go hand in hand to me. Because you have to know how to use, as an artist, you have to know how to use the tools, and you have to learn techniques, and it's the same as learning a sort of a craft. But I suppose crafts would maybe are perceived more traditionally, but historically or something. I don't know, but I see them as kind of one and the same personally. But over here, the textile arts are definitely gaining more sort of market value. There's people are starting to show in a different place with textiles where they maybe weren't so valued in the past. So I'm excited about that.
Well, I'm surprised. I would have sworn you'd say the opposite. I thought the US would be, to me, there's that whole pigeonhole thing about craft. So, well, good for you. You're helping change that. I'm glad. Now, many rug makers, rug artists, have very linear and hard edge and sharp contrast in their designs. but your work is so organic. It just has a feel to it. It's softer, it blends. And here are two works. One is the Radiance and the other is Blue Remembered. Can you talk some about those choices for you?
Yeah, so I think I've always enjoyed working with gradients, and I love working with colors and blending colors and mixing colors. And so the piece on the left was made with wool, and I didn't dye that. That's commercially dyed rug wool, and it's just that's what I was able to blend. And then the rug on the right, the Blue Remembered, that's cotton. It's actually recycled cotton, and it's that was hand painted wet with fiber reactive dye. And so that was just a very, I mean, I really want to explore this technique a lot more. This is me just getting the wet wit and creating skeins that I will then paint dye on and then weave it, and it creates these lovely soft edges. And it's, you know, it's my, yeah, my way of expressing.
Well, they're just beautiful. They're
Thank
just
you.
gorgeous.
Thank you.
I read one time where an artist said that he fell towards success. And what he was talking about is that a lot of his mistakes or errors made him a successful artist that he became. Has that ever happened to you? Do you find that those errors kind of help?
Definitely. I wouldn't be where I am without making, you know, some discoveries, I'd say. You know, so
I like that better. Discoveries, not errors, discoveries.
yeah, unexpected discoveries. Absolutely. I think when I was younger, I used to be more precious about making mistakes or whatever, and now I think that they're part of what you need to learn in order to go carry on with something. You know, it's taking it to a more exploratory level and more interesting, definitely. And yeah, sometimes the mistakes you learn are that you actually become to incorporate them as part of your technique. I find it's like, oh, that happened, that's what I want. So
I
yeah,
meant to do that. Yeah.
yeah, I meant to do that, absolutely. Like, do it consistently.
Well, kind of changing the subject here, and I appreciate you sharing this part of the episode here, is that not everybody will know this, but you have very limited eyesight. So
Yeah.
how has that impacted on the work that you do?
Well, I believe that it has been instrumental in the way that I perceive color and contrast. And I think I've got highly developed sort of cones and rods that were you know, enable me to identify things that are, you know, in a different way. And rug weaving and dyeing is just the perfect vehicle for my artistic expression and my visual interpretation. And I didn't really realize it, but when I look back at my body of work over the time, it's definitely got, you know, it's very, you know, the very vivid, some of the, you know, colors are very vivid or soft, or you know. So yeah, it's and I also have a lot of designs that have come from my mind's eye as well. So
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. Your mind's eye. I like that. Do you have to make special accommodations for your limited eyesight?
well, I think yes, I think I probably do without knowing it, but I've also more recently I've been fortunate that I've got some assistance and I've got somebody helping me like thread my reed now. So I don't have to spend so much time redoing it. And but basically I'm rug weaving, so it's actually 4 ends to the inch. So it's really, I can do most of it by feel, and obviously it's all very colorful what I do, and I can see what I'm doing. Um, and yeah, I absolutely love, you know, weave the act after weaving and dyeing, it's, very enjoyable.
Well, it's so tactile, so that is great. Yeah. Your work, blended hues, and you said this is a dip dyeing technique.
That's
So,
right.
and you dye a lot of your yarns, right?
Well, I've just started. I've been dyeing cotton for the last 20 years, and I've just started dyeing wool about 2 years ago. Since college, I really have been kind of specializing in just dyeing cotton yarns. But I made the jump to start dip dyeing wool. I thought I'm going to challenge myself, and so I made this. This piece was one of those pieces that it took me a long time to get the colors that I was after, those sort of primary vivid colors. It took me quite a bit of experimentation, but I made about 3 other beautiful rugs with the with the leftovers. So but yeah, so that's dip dyeing wool, and in acid dye, and I've just started to explore more with natural dyeing. So that's my latest adventure.
Now, when you say dip dyeing, because I know people are going to ask, it is literally you take the yarn and you dip it into the dye vat?
So what I do is I have to know with the type of weaving that I've done there, it's a weft-faced weaving, and so I have to know the width of my weaving first. So I'll weave a little bit, I'll weave a few inches, and I'll mark it with a pen, and then I will unweave it, and that is the width of my skein with the take up that I'll need. This is a technique that I learned from Mary Zickafoos at a convergence years ago, that when she taught me how to do weft ikat. So I was doing weft ikat for a bit, then I started to do weft painting, and now I'm doing dip dyeing, but I'm using the same kind of weft method where I need to know the width of my weft, the horizontal threads, the wool or the cotton, and I always use a linen warp. But so what I'll do is I'll have a skein that is a certain, it's only maybe 50 grams or something, and each skein I'll have to make a number of them, and sometimes 30, and then I'll dip the light end first, and then I'll turn it around, and I'll dip the dark end. I'll put it into a stronger vat of dye, actually, is what I'll do. So I'll dip all the light ends first, and then I'll dip the darker ends in a darker solution of dye, and then I'll gradually lift it out so that it will blend in the middle, hopefully. But acid dye is very fun because it's quite quick to do, whereas when I was using the fiber reactive dye on cotton, it was something I had to set overnight.
Oh, right.
Wait for the results. And now I get them immediately. So.
Well, along with that, I'm always amazed when I hear artists who are dyeing their own yarn. Do you think dyeing your own yarn has changed how you you use color, or that you look at color?
Yes, I think so. Yes, I do, because what it means for me is it gives me a lot more control of how I want to express color. Whereas if I just had to go to a yarn shop and rely on what they had available, which is what I used to have to do, this just opens up a whole new kind of library of choices, really, color choices, when I can just, and now I know enough about it. I've learned enough. I still don't know enough about natural dyeing. I'm learning about that now, but I've got some great books. I've done some fantastic courses with people, and so I'm quite confident. And one of the best things that somebody told me about dyeing is, even if you're using a recipe, it's kind of like cooking, and you can do it a little bit how you want to. So if you want a little bit more of this color, you can, if you know what you're doing, you can add a little bit more. But I've taken lots of courses about sort of color theory as well, so that's really helped.
I like that recipe theory. That's great. That's a good idea.
It really
Yeah.
helped me get over the science bit. I was a bit sort of worried that I wasn't going to be accurate enough, but I am accurate, and I keep good records and everything. But sometimes if I don't have to repeat it, it's fun to just like, oh, what if I did a little bit of this? So
Well, I'm ready to go dine now. I hear you talking. I'm inspired. I want to go dine. Well, I'm shifting here again. I saw this image on your Instagram page, and you should check out our Instagram. There's great images there. I love this. I just love this. Now, these are oil pastels, and if you're not familiar with these, they're like oily crayons. They blend beautifully, and I love working with them, and I know you do too. So I have to ask you, were you one of those kids when you were growing up that your big thrill was getting that box of crayons, whether it was the 24, I never got the 64, but was that you?
Yes. And I'm still like that, because that's my new box. I mean, it's not new anymore. The crayons are all worn down a bit, but that was a lovely gift from my aunt and uncle. Yeah, but my mum and dad always used to buy me big boxes of crayons and everything, paint, felt pens, and yeah, I loved it. Still do.
Well, I love those. After I saw them, I had to go Google them and see. I thought they were great.
Really a treat. But with those, you don't actually need that many colors to achieve a great range. I mean, I never used to have that many, so
because they blend so nicely, right? You can make any color you need.
You only need a few primaries, really. The warm and the cool primaries, and a black and a gray and white, and you're good.
All right. Well, since we're talking about you younger, I have one question that I like to ask people is, if you could go back in time and talk to the younger Jacqueline, what would you say to you?
Oh, I would say, in terms of as a rug weaver, I would say to her, I wish you would have started learning about marketing earlier, marketing and business management earlier, because it's as much of a skill and it's an important of a skill as weaving rugs, because you need to be able to sell them if you make them. And so it took me a long time in my career to get around to seriously studying marketing and business management, and I actually really enjoy it. I spend much more time doing administration than I used to, and trying to keep on top of that and keep in touch with people. And also I think one of the biggest things is to get somebody to take you through the process of correctly pricing your work. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the biggest things that I didn't do until I started working with the Design Trust about 6 years ago, and I did a training with a session with her that gave me the insight of how much it costs to make my work, and how much the market value is as well, and how much I need to earn. So,
well, I know people have asked that on our Textiles Tea, is how do you do that? It's tough part of what you have to do, right?
It's just another skill to learn, and there's lots of books and courses available. There's lots of people that, especially the Design Trust was specifically for small creative businesses, so it wasn't just dry business advice. It's it was very appropriate and relevant, and very inspiring, and it really transformed my business.
Well, continuing with this line of thought, if I went back in time, and let's say when you started college, and I said, you are going to be very successful weaver, and you will sell your work, and it will be seen at Westminster Abbey, what would your reaction have been, do you think?
I would have said, really? I said, oh, wow, I hope so.
Did you have an idea that I'm going to make it in this?
No, I wanted to, obviously, because I wanted it to be my job. I wanted it to be my life's work, my vocation. So I was pretty committed to it, absolutely. committed to it, but I didn't know what was ahead at all. I didn't know, but I have aspirations. I want to do well, and I I like challenges, and I like opportunities, and I do challenge myself, and I apply for things, and I sometimes, sometimes get rejected, and I just get back on and try again. And so,
Well,
yeah.
it's worked out well for you, that's for sure.
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah.
I have some questions from the audience, so can we
Okay.
do that?
Sure.
Okay. Some of these questions I know you've already answered already, but Rosalie Nast, this isn't a question, she's just saying hi. Love to hear that you grew up in Bellingham. That's my hometown. So, hey, Rosalie, thank you for watching. Oh, somebody wants to know how to adapt your loom to shaft switching. I think that's more that we can probably address here, but where's a good place to learn about that?
Well, there's some online resources, but there's a really easy way to do it with just dupes of string. And what you're really doing is you're not threading your warp through a heddle. So I started doing it just with string before I had a device. So I would advise looking online, and the Handweave and Shuttle Spindle and Die Pot, and I'm sure they have resources about it. Yeah, just do a search about it.
Yeah,
And
Mary Holm was asking, what is shaft switching? And again, I would encourage you to go online and see it. You have to see it to really understand it. It's
very
brilliant.
difficult to explain. It's difficult to explain, but it basically changes the shafts without changing the threading.
Right. Gail Violence wants to know what kind of loom. Oh, that's not Gail. Anu Bhatti wants to know, what kind of loom do you use and how many shafts?
So I use a beautiful secondhand Limakra Swedish loom that is a countermarch loom that it has the capacity for 8 shafts, but I just use 4.
Okay.
Very simple weaving. I only use a few different techniques. I keep it simple, but it's all in the color and the pattern. Texture.
Serena Rachels wants to know the Portuguese pavement rug. She said she really liked that, but she was curious which is the warp and which is the weft. Now the weft was the shorter dimension, right?
So the weft actually is what you see predominantly. It's called weft-faced weaving, the type of weaving that I do, which means that the weft completely covers the warp. And the warp is the skeleton of the rug, which you can't see. And that would be the vertical stripe, the vertical lines, and the horizontal lines of weaving is the weft. You weave from right to left of the weft.
Okay.
And so so you can't see my warp unless there's a fringe at the end.
And you use linen, right?
I use linen, yeah, because it's you have to have anybody can do rug weaving, but you have to have quite a strong loom in order to hold the strong tension that you need for the linen, because you have to wind it quite tight, and so that you can make rug weaving is quite specific. Yeah, it's a specialist. It's a specialist thing. I don't know how to weave cloth. I know how to weave rugs, just that are like very important selvages and the edges and the functionality. But to me, decoration is important as functionality.
Well, you have that in common with Jason. I took a workshop from him one time, and somebody referred to him as a weaver, and he said, "I am not a weaver. I'm a rug maker." So there you go.
Yeah, it's quite specific, and especially Jason, he's really specialist.
Yes.
He's amazing.
What size linen do you use for your warp?
So it's a I think it's called, I think it's called like an 8-5 linen, and I use it like what one 1-2 1-2 1-2 threaded 1-2 to give it kind of a strength. And I can't I'm not very good about yarn sets, so I'm not very good about translating it. It's something, like I said, I have materials that I've always used, and I don't vary too much, except for recently when I've started trying different fibers, which I'm super excited about.
You use what works.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Somebody wants to know about the graph paper. What brand is that? Can we find that somewhere?
Sure. I mean, I don't think I can get it anymore, because all these things, they're not making them anymore. This old stationery stuff.
Oh,
But it was from an art shop, but I can't remember what brand it is. It has an orange. I know it has an orange cover, and I can't put my hand on it right now. But if somebody wants to email me that question, that's fine. They can do
okay.
that.
Rita, if you will email her, she will find out if she
I'll look it
can
up for you.
and
I'll
find out if it's still available.
Yep, I will.
Diane Field said that she is fascinated by making wool twill rugs.
Mhm.
Do you use twill?
I do. I've just started doing some twill samples with this new materials that I'm using, just to try different things. So yeah, I'm doing some tutu twill, which is a good weft base, very strong, and yeah, it's great, really good.
Diane also wanted to know, can you give an example to explain the experience of using your mind's eye in a design process?
So a good example would be when I didn't send you any photographs of them, but I've made a lot of seascape wall hangings in my time. All of them are very different. They're abstract, but they're from my mind's eye, from when I grew up on the West Coast. And there were sunsets and sunrises, and just sort of the if you imagine islands that are kind of graded colors and things. So those are things from my mind's eye, or landscape, where it's very abstract. It's not realistic, but it's from what I can remember of the colors and the movements.
Elizabeth Short said, hi, Jacqueline. I think we were together in Portland all those years ago for Jason's workshop. A few years ago, he designed a rug for my entrance hall based on my etched glass front doors. I always thought about a piece from Peter, but didn't get to order in time. And she said she loves her Jason piece. So just a shout out from Elizabeth Short to you.
Wonderful. Hello.
Now, you mentioned earlier the type of dyes that you use. Fern Handler wants to know what type of dyes you use. And then Janice Waterworth wants to know what brand, if you could let us know.
So I use acid dyes for wool, and they're called, from a company called Colorcraft, and I use fiber reactive dyes, and they're from Colorcraft as well. But there's a good company over here is Chemtex, and the natural dyes I'm getting from a few different suppliers in the UK. That Wild Colors is the best website for natural dye pigments and powders and things. But there's lots of great places in the UK that you can buy products.
Okay.
And so I source them over here. But if I'm over in the States, I'll buy things over there too. I like Dharma.
Dharma, okay, yep.
All the product, acid and fiber reactive and natural dyes too.
Now, I know when I've taken a workshop, there was two worlds of thinking. One is you buy all the different colors, and then kind of like we were talking about with the crepes. And then some people say, no, you get your basics and mix.
Yeah.
Do you do one or the other, both?
Nope. When I'm buying my dye colors, apart from natural dyes, because I don't understand them enough yet to mix them, but all I have in my dye selection is I've got a lemon yellow, a golden yellow, a scarlet red, a magenta red, a turquoise, a cyan turquoise blue, and a like a true blue, like a bright blue, like a just a regular blue. And then I'll have a navy blue, and I'll have a charcoal, and
And
that's
that's
it.
it, huh?
That's it. And I'll make
Wow.
any color I want out of those. But it it really does come from having taken some great courses at like convergences and things, where there's dye experts who they give you like a color wheel to or the triad to show you how these things might work, so you can kind of try dyeing things. And yeah, I think it's really trial and error, because a lot of it's about intensity, how they're not all the same strength, the colors aren't all the same strength. You
Yeah.
have to learn about things. But I always make stock solution with my dye powders, and I always use designated equipment for my dyeing, and I also use safe protection so that I don't inhale dust. And but apart from that, it's really fun.
Do you have a studio you work out of, or do you work out of your home?
I work out of my home, which is really my home studio, because every single room in my home is devoted to some sort of thing. I've got in my living room where I'm sitting right now, I've got I think two smaller looms, and then in my front room I've got a large loom, and then I've got lots of little like portable looms and things for my hobby, my tapestry weaving hobby. and then yeah, so I dye in my kitchen or outside if it's nice. I put a table outside and in my backyard, and yeah, try to keep the mess to a minimum.
Joan Ruan wants to know, now that hemp yarn is becoming available, could you use hemp rather than linen for warp?
So I probably could if it was smooth enough. But the trouble that what I need is I need a nice smooth linen, strong linen. But hemp is probably as strong as linen, definitely. And one of the things as well about linen and hemp is it doesn't rot like cotton does. So that's another reason for using something that's that's going to withstand, because rugs, they have to be durable. They can't be like wearing out in a year or two.
Well, that's true.
So, yeah, I'm absolutely interested in discovering if I can find a source of hemp for my warp in the future, for sure. I'm open to, I'm interested in using more sustainable. I'm just in the process of communicating with somebody who has a mill that has ramie, which is what is it? It's a nettle. It's from China. It's a nettle from China, so it grows really without any effort, and it's really great. It's a wonderful. It's almost like silk, and it's also kind of like linen. Depends how it's processed, but it has lots of lovely qualities. So I'm exploring that at the moment as well.
Well, isn't nettle considered like invasive or a weed in some places? It's pretty plentiful, right?
Yep, it's considered a weed, but apparently it's very nutritious.
I've heard that too. I've heard that too.
My mom and my grandmother and aunt and everything, their family in the UK, they would eat it during the time of the war in the 1930s and 40s. They would have been nettle soup and things like that. But I've never tried it. I've only been stung by it, so I keep away. But one day
I don't know that one either.
I think I've had nettle tea. I've had nettle tea, but it's supposed to be really good for you.
And that's where ramie comes from, is nettles. I did not know that.
Like it grows in China, so it's that particular species. So it's not the type we have on the side of the road in the UK. It's more. I think it's larger. It's like they grow larger taller, but really very easy. You know, it's like there's nothing to it. It's almost like a weed, I think. Very sustainable. It's a great product, kind of like linen. Doesn't take much to process as well. So.
Let's see what's next on our question here. Harriet Gundered wants to know, how old were you when you returned to England?
Well, I graduated from high school when I was 18, so I traveled around for a couple of years till I was 20. So I moved back to the UK when I was 20, 21, 22.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. And I've lived in New York ever since as well.
Oh, Carol Devoninsky said, much of your beautiful work is about the line and color. You mentioned tapestry. Do you weave any pictorial pieces, or is it mainly abstract?
I do sometimes weave pictorial pieces with a little bit of tapestry weaving in it. But mainly my pattern is done with shaft switching, and sometimes it can be it's kind of more like a digital looking rather than realistic.
I like that, digital. Very good.
Yeah,
We've got people telling us more about nettle. Marilyn Roberts said, I just made a nettle dye pot. It makes a pale green to greenish gray. It's beautiful.
Oh, nice.
And then Andrea Thiessen said, nettle straightens the bones and thickens the hair. Tea is great, but it needs honey.
Right.
Again, you learn amazing things on this show, not just about fiber, but you know. And Sandy Rubenfeld wants to know, is ramie available anywhere in North America? I've never bought it, so I don't know.
I'm sure it is available in the USA. Absolutely,
Yeah.
it must be.
So if anybody's listening, if you would put in the chat where you have bought ramie, that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Helen Regnery said, I have had several courses from Jason, and he uses wool exclusively. So it's interesting you're using linen, but you use linen for the warp.
Yeah.
Right.
So but I do use cotton for the weft, and more recently I've been using I've only been sampling. I haven't made a full rug yet, but I've been sampling with silk, this ramie yarn, and I've been banana fiber, which is wonderful and very textured, kind of silk-like too, and so I've been buying it undyed, all this stuff as well. So I've been dyeing it with natural dyes, and yeah, I'm just trying to see what I'm excited about, kind of trying something in combination as well, so that there's maybe more than one fiber weft in the rug. You know, might use a few different fibers in each rug for different textures and different surface effects, you know.
Someone's just posted in chat, I think, a website where you can get nettle. So
good.
Robin Spady, hi Robin, says, it's great to see your latest work, Jacqueline. It is beautiful as ever.
I remember Robin.
So you've mentioned some of the new yarns that you are going to be using. What's down the pike for you? What's next for Jacqueline to start working on?
Well, last year I was commissioned to make a multi-sensory tactile handling piece for a gallery in South Yorkshire, and it's a Cooper Gallery, and there was an exhibition on last year called Allegories of the Senses, and somebody who knew me from working at York Art Gallery when I used to work as an artist in schools, she remembered me, and she asked me if I would like to make this handling piece, and it was super exciting because it was completely tactile, and it wasn't functional. It was just a handling piece. So I used a kind of a rug technique. It was about 2 feet wide and about 5 feet long, and it was made out of all different kinds of fibers that I've never ever used before. And I just went around and I got all sorts of different things, and it has all sorts of things woven into it. I need to kind of promote it more. It's kind of, I'm still on getting on top of other things that I need to finish. But anyway, this piece, it's really exciting because for the first time ever, I think I made something that wasn't functional. It was just interesting, and it has bells on it, so it has sound. It has all different textures, and yeah, I was using everything I could find, and I even used some garden wire that I wrapped yarn around, and I wove with that, so it has like a three-dimensional area in it. So yeah, that kind of thing, that really set my mind going about what's possible. I could make more pieces that are maybe just for wall hangings or for installation or something. But one of the things that I'm really interested in doing is more collaborative work with other artists or organizations, to make pieces that are, coming from different directions.
Well, when you start getting to a point where you want to share that information, would you send us some images and we can put them on our Facebook page?
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody wants to see that.
Oh yeah, I've got some really great detailed pictures of it, but I haven't got a great picture of the whole thing.
Okay.
So that's why I've not shared so much, and it's not on my Instagram even yet. But that's what I'm probably going to be doing a bit more of that, I think. And that just made me sort of really get excited about ordering different types of fiber that I've never used before, and just kind of getting out of the comfort box a little bit, and using more natural things. I mean, cotton and wool are natural, of course, but the using natural dyes as well, and finding some that are permanent. So that's my next exploration, is to find the primaries for me, the blue and the yellow and the red, that are going to give me my palette, because that's going to be different.
Yeah.
That's going to be really different.
Christina Peters wants to know, do you use British wools, and what is your favorite?
So what I use is I just found out that it might not all be British wool. I used to call it British wool because it came from Britain, but apparently it could be mixed with other breeds of wool besides just British wool. So what I generally tend to use, if I don't use 100% British wool, where I can source, I mostly use reclaimed rug wool from the carpet industry, and it's in the UK. You can go to big huge warehouses and buy enormous cones of like one color of yarn, and or you can go to a shop and buy their versions of it all wound down into nice little packages, color schemes and everything. So there's a range of that, and that so mainly I use reclaimed rug wool from the carpet industry, which I did call British wool till I spoke to somebody at the British Marketing Board, and she said, well, that could be mixed. So I can't say it's British, but I did buy it over here. It could have.
It lived in Britain for a while, if nothing else, right?
That's right. I think, I mean, what it could be is it could be blended with Australian wool and Canadian wool and things like that, and then it just means that it's not pure British wool.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'd like to do a collection with pure British wool. Yeah. And then different breeds as well, like different colors, and not just the white wool, but maybe the Herdwick, which is the really old wool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, another thing I've been doing is like weaving with unspun fibers as well, and that's new. So I'm experimenting at the moment, having lots of fun.
Well, somebody was asking about the Minster at York. She said it's the most beautiful cathedral in England. And is that where you have one of your commissions?
Yes, I do. So it was a specific seasonal piece, and so it's a Lenten altar frontal for the high altar, and it's only shown there during this, the kind of the Lenten period and the spring. And I think at the moment it's in storage, but I did see it a couple of years ago. They still have it and they still use it, but they have to keep things safe away from the moths. So they have a special room where they store all of their textiles, and I've had the privilege of being able to go in there one day and have a look at it around, which was really great.
We have another how-to question. Gail Valance wants to know, when you slay 1 2 1 2, are the 2 yarns used as a single warp?
Yeah. Okay. They are. That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, sorry, I'm not very clear, but yeah, so it's just to give it in. If I was just to if I was to make a rug with just a single warp for 4 ends to the inch, it would be not as rigid as when I use this 1 and 2. But yes, I thread 2 warps in 1 heddle and 1 reed bent.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Well, Gloria Donardi said, Jacqueline, you're amazing and inspirational. And I have to agree. I have enjoyed talking to you so much. I can't believe it's time to quit for today.
Thank you so
much. And I just want to
to
say thank you so much for taking the time and being on the show and staying up so late and to be part of this. And I look forward to your images. I want to see, and everybody's asking already. They want to see more pictures of them.
Okay, I will. I'll send them, I promise. But
good.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I've really enjoyed talking with you. And yeah, thank you. I love the series. It's the highlight of my week.
Well, good. If you want to know more about Jacqueline and her work, go to her website. It's handwovenrugs.co.uk. And again, it's co.uk because she is in England. So, and you can see more images. Everybody's been asking to see more images of your work. She has more images of her work and lots more information about Jacqueline. So check that out. I do want to give a special thank you to Meridian Millhouse for sponsoring today's Textiles and Tea. You can see their full range of yarns at meridianmill.com. And I just saw this today that they have a Shaniko wool. It's a wool, I believe it's from Oregon area, but they treat their sheep and their land responsibly. So go to the website. Again, it's beautiful undyed wool. Check that out. If you would like to sponsor an episode of Textiles and Tea, or your guild or your business, please go to our website for more information at weavespindye.org. Textile and Tea is supported by the generous donations to the Fiber Trust. If you would like to see more programming like this, please support HGA by donating to the Fiber Trust or joining, or both, on our website at weavespindye.org. If you've missed any of the programs, if you missed part of today, or you want to watch it again because it was so interesting, or you want to share it with a friend, today's episode and all the episodes have been recorded, and you can see those on the HGA Facebook page. And again, you don't have to have a Facebook account to watch them. Next week, we are going to have tea with Lily Marsh. She's a fiber artist from the American Northeast, and we're so excited about that. Again, I hope you all enjoyed today. Jacqueline, thank you so much. Y'all have a great week, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Happy tea.